Hey, what's going on, wrestling fans? I'm Brooklyn's own Toddy D. Welcome to Toddy D's Pro Wrestling Podcast, episode number 4. Thank you for joining. Tonight we're going to discuss the fallout of last night's Survivor Series. I'll discuss my opinions and the results really quickly, and then we're going to jump into several of the topics. We'll do one at a time. We're going to save all the best for last. So, getting right into Survivor Series last night, first and foremost, I, for one, was not happy having the ladies three-way triple threat match as the closer. Nothing against the women. They had a hell of a year. Between the women's revolution and all the stuff they did all year has been nothing but phenomenal. The ladies were great at War Games on Saturday night. I was really impressed by Rhea Ripley, which we'll get into in a few minutes. Also, they did a great show last night, the ladies. They put on a hell of a show at Survivor Series. I just feel, in my opinion, the closer should have been Brock Lesnar defending the title against Rey Mysterio. The last 3 matches in this particular order should have first been Bray Wyatt defending against Daniel Bryan, and then have the women on, Bayley versus Becky Lynch versus Shayna Baszler. And then the final match should have been Brock Lesnar defending the Raw Championship against Rey Mysterio. That should have been the go-home match, and that's the bottom line, as Stone Cold would say. That's just my opinion. So anyway, with that being said, as everybody's aware by now, there were 3 pre-matches before the actual start of Survivor Series. And I have to say that all 3 matches and the outcomes of the winners, I totally agreed with. That was the only thing I really agreed with for the most part in the night with people going over. You had NXT had 4 wins, SmackDown had 2, and Raw had 1. So with the pre-show, first was the Tag Team Battle Royal, and Robert Roode and Dolph Ziggler went over. They won the match, and I think that was the right decision to have SmackDown win that particular pre-show match because, Dolph and Robert Roode, they're both, still building as a tag team, and I think them getting that win, helps them move along and plow forward and give them the bragging rights that they need in order to be more of a believable tag team. So I think that was the right decision. Then moving on to the second pre-match was the triple threat match with the Cruiserweight title on the line. And Lio Rush, defended successfully. He won. And I think that was the right decision as well because, Lio Rush is coming into his own. I think he's a great high flyer. He's a great cruiserweight. He's got a lot of charisma. I particularly didn't care for him when he was managing Bobby Lashley or Mouthpiece, whatever you want to call him. I thought he was nothing but obnoxious and annoying to the point, not that I thought he was doing a great job at being obnoxious. I just thought in general, he fell flat at being the mouthpiece or even like wannabe advocate for Bobby Lashley. He definitely was no Paul Heyman. So I'm glad he's at NXT. I'm glad he's their cruiserweight champion. And, moving forward, I think Lio Rush, we're going to see big things from him. Hopefully he'll have a nice run with the title. And then the last match on the pre-show showed the triple threat match with your 3 tag teams from all of their respective brands. You had the Undisputed Era representing NXT. You had the New Day representing SmackDown. And then you had, last but not least, the Viking Raiders representing Monday Night Raw. And, I'm a big fan of the Viking Raiders. I mean, these guys are amazing. They move like lightweights. I mean, the way they move around and do flips and pick each other, slam each other onto their opponents, it's really cool. I really dig it. I'm hoping eventually they'll have a program with the AOP. So hopefully they'll have a nice, feud in the future because they're bringing them back onto TV little by little. And I think that'll be a hell of a feud eventually. So with that being said, the first 3 matches on the pre-show, I thought that each winner for each respective brand, I thought that was very well planned, and I thought that everyone who wins should have been the winner. I actually agree with all 3 of those pre-match results. But now I have a problem with the 7 matches that were on the main show. Let's see, what do we have here now? On the first match, you had the Women's Survivor Series triple threat elimination with the captains. So it's basically 15 people, 5 on 5 on 5. And, the winners were Team NXT Rhea Ripley, along with Shari and Candice LeRae. Now, that particular match, okay, fine. Them winning was the right decision only because Rhea Ripley, they're trying to build her and make her, be very believable as like a major player for the women's division. I mean, she's tall, she's strong, she has a good look, and I think moving forward she'll be a formidable opponent to going Shayna Baszler. I mean, she's held the title on 2 different occasions now, and I think Shayna Baszler's best competition to date will be eventually against Rhea Ripley. So that first match, okay, I agree, that should have been the winner, Team NXT. But now going to the triple threat match, you had Shinsuke Nakamura, the IC title holder. You had the NXT North American champion, Roderick Strong, as well as the United States champion, AJ Styles, do a fatal 3-way. So now we all know the outcome of that was Roderick Strong winning. And I don't feel Roderick Strong should have won that. What I would have done was either book Shinsuke Nakamura or even AJ Styles to win that. And here's the deal. Neither one of them, in my opinion, aren't defending those titles properly. And we're going to get into that in a little bit. Personally, I'm an old school fan of the IC title. I remember back in the day in the 80s, going into the 90s, the IC title was a stepping stone to the WWE title. And it was a very believable title. There was a time where that title was just as prestigious as the then WWF, then WWE, eventually heavyweight title. And at times it surpassed the WWE title. I mean, think about the IC champions you've had in the past. You had, Mr. Perfect, Kurt Hennig, you had Bret the Hitman Hart, Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, the Macho Man Randy Savage. And people can laugh if they want about Honky Tonk Man. He was the greatest Intercontinental champion of all time. He was a 14-month champion. But you get my drift. There were a lot of IC title holders that brought prestige to the title, even way back when, Magnificent Morocco, Tito Santana, Greg the Hammer Valentine. Your first inaugural IC champion was Pat Patterson. I mean, back in those days, that IC title meant something. And now, the last couple of years, it's just been a strap for somebody to hold, or a title, I should say, for somebody to hold to make it look relevant when they weren't doing any justification to that title. And then recently they came out with this new IC title, and I've said it on my Twitter page before, Toddy D Wrestling. Looking at that title reminds me of a cheap knockoff of the AEW title. It looks just like the AEW heavyweight title. It even looks a little reminiscent to the ladies' championship in AEW. I'm not a fan of the new title. They got rid of the heritage. They got rid of all the lineage of that IC title. I happen to have been a fan of the white strap when Cody Rhodes was in WWE. He brought the white strap back. I thought it was great. I mean, that IC title would look nice with either a black strap, a yellow strap, a white strap. It doesn't matter. As long as you don't make it red or blue, that title would look wonderful the way it was, and I don't think they should have changed the style of the belt. I like the old school feel, and if you represented that title correctly, then that title would mean something. I'm not saying that Shinsuke Nakamura, isn't a good wrestler or a good performer, because he is. I just feel, in my opinion, he's not meant to be the IC, champion. Who is, who's not? I just don't think Shinsuke Nakamura is what I'm saying. And as far as the United States title is concerned, I remember way back in the day, and I'm not talking about when John Cena had that open invitation. To me, that was BS. I'm talking about when the United States title meant something way back in the day, when guys like Harley Race held the title. People of his generation, that title meant something as well. And I feel like if they're not going to do anything with the IC title or the U.S. title, especially the U.S. title, you might as well just do away with it and put it back on the shelf, because it's not being represented properly. And getting back to my original point of all this is I feel that AJ Styles should have went over in that triple threat match yesterday, because having that win and making the title prestigious and matter, maybe he would actually defend it from there and make the title worth the damn. That's just my opinion. I don't think Roderick Strong needed to go over in that match. He had a hell of a presentation at War Games, and he could have put on a great match, and he didn't even have to get pinned, or even if he did get pinned, it wouldn't have mattered. This is a WWE Survivor Series event. It's cool that NXT is involved, but I just think that they're, way too pro NXT last night at Survivor Series. I didn't agree with it at all. But that's just my opinion. So then the third match, you had Pete Dunne go up against Adam Cole for the NXT, heavyweight title. And, personally, not to knock the small guys, because, everybody has a place in wrestling. I'm not being prejudiced toward the smaller guys. I think Pete Dunne is pretty good. He's all right and all, but, I mean, it was obvious that, Adam Cole, boom, baby, was going to go over and keep the title. I mean, I don't see Pete Dunne getting the title last night. I saw Adam Cole, retaining and moving forward. And the thing with Pete Dunne is I'm just not a big fan of the whole finger bending and the cracking and all that crap. To me, that's not wrestling. It's just a little side freak show just for him to have some kind of gimmick. Not into it really, so I'm not really impressed. I think it's boring. I think it's stupid. But then again, just my opinion. So now getting on to match number 4, the Universal title match was Daniel Bryan versus the Fiend Bray Wyatt. So now, here's the funny thing. Bray Wyatt, okay, and we're going to get to this in another topic. But, when he comes out as, the Fiend with the mask and Mr. Crazy and all, like a sociopath, they wrestle in that red light. Now, when he was first on Monday Night Raw, and he beat Seth Rollins for the title, Monday Night Raw, red brand, red strap, okay, red lighting, supposed to be like demonic, evil, whatever you want to call it. But it doesn't make sense to me now that he's got that title on SmackDown. The strap is blue now, And shouldn't light be blue and not red? Just my opinion. I don't think there should be any light at all whatsoever. I don't think he needs that light. He could just be wrestling, in a regular lighting situation, or have the, light spot a little darker or creepier. But to me, that bright red light is nothing but annoying. I don't think it's necessary to have. Just my opinion. But obviously, I knew that Bray Wyatt was going to go over because he just recently won the title. Where do you go from here with Bray Wyatt? Because now they're making him impervious, to pain and to all these finishers. And he's like basically no-selling everybody's, finishing moves. I think Seth Rollins in Crown Jewel, he did like 25 curb stomps, and, he still kicked out of every pin. So basically my question is, where does WWE go from here? Who's going to beat Bray Wyatt, the Fiend, in the future? How is he going to, become mortal and be able to, be defeated? I mean, I feel like WWE is backing themselves into a corner. But then again, it's just simply my opinion. And then you had match number 5. You had the Men's Survivor Series, Triple Threat Elimination. And as you know, the winners for that was Team SmackDown, Roman Reigns. I thought that Roman Reigns and Keith Lee one-on-one was awesome. I am a huge fan of Keith Lee. I see nothing but great things for him. For a big man, damn, he can move. He's really awesome. The way he does the moonsault and just the way he carries himself. Dude's got charisma. I think he's great. And, I don't think it was really necessary for Roman Reigns to win that match. But I think somewhere down the line, Keith Lee will get a chance to shine. So perhaps in that match, it should have been SmackDown or Raw to go over. So I agree with that. But, overall last night, NXT had 4 wins. We're going to get to the last one in a few minutes. So then moving along, you had the no-holds-barred match. You had Brock Lesnar go against Rey Mysterio. I thought it was pretty cool when Dominic came out. He tried to help his pop out, and, he took a couple, licks for his troubles. It was pretty funny. Where do you go from here? I mean, Brock Lesnar's a beast. Having Rey Mysterio go against him last night, I know Rey Mysterio's beat big guys before. He's the little big man, they call him. I think it's a cute little catchphrase. Not to take away anything from Rey Mysterio. I think he's nothing but awesome. He's one hell of a wrestler. But this isn't the way it was, 10, 15 years ago when he was beating, bigger guys. This is Brock Lesnar. The dude is, he's a wrecking machine. He's a beast. He ended Taker's career streak. So I just thought that match, it was a nice little build, good little feel with the family getting involved. I wasn't a fan of the whole Cain Velasquez deal in Crown Jewel, nor was I a fan of Tyson, Fury. In my last podcast, I discussed about these outsiders coming in and then making the, wrestlers or entertainers, if you want to call them the talent, they make them look bad, and I'm just not a fan of that. So, obviously I knew Brock Lesnar was going to go over. And then last but not least, you had the Triple Threat Women's match, non-title. You had Bayley, versus Shayna Baszler versus Becky Lynch. Obviously, everybody was talking about Shayna Baszler the whole, pre-show. All he was talking about was, Shayna Baszler this and Shayna Baszler that. It was so obvious that she was going to go over and win. At least that's what I thought at the time. Obviously, it was so predictable from the beginning that Bayley was going to take either a pin or a submission. I kind of feel bad for her in a way because they make her like the weak link of the 3. And, the way she said it in the interview earlier in the night before the match started, she's the only person to ever hold the NXT Championship, the Raw Championship, the Women's SmackDown Championship, and as well as the Tag Team Championship with Sasha Banks. And it's like, she gets no respect. I think it's cool that she got rid of the Bayley buddies. What did Booker T call him? The Bayley something or other. He got that wrong. Typical Booker T. The fact that she finally got rid of that stupid side ponytail and that, all that hugging crap. And I think in order for her to be more of a heel and more demonic, I came up with this idea a long time ago. If Bayley's going to go heel, she has to go full in heel, full-blown heel. She should take her hair and have it like kind of like wet, like the way Bret Hitman Hart used to wear his hair. Have it wet and have it wear like all black. Nothing colorful, nothing flashy, no little star tattoos on the side of her head, none of that makeup bullshit, none of that crap. Just have her come out, all in black, and have her be, like a full total heel, like the way Stone Cold is. If you look at him behind me there on the wall, something like that, They refer to Becky Lynch as like the female version of Stone Cold. And the problem I have with that, it's very simple. When Becky Lynch became the man, it was organic. She flipped out that night when she beat down Charlotte when Charlotte did the natural selection. And Becky thought she had the match won. This is before the whole man gimmick started. The crowd was going nuts for Becky. She finally, she had enough. She beat down Charlotte Flair. She was like trying to be a full-blown heel. And then little by little, the crowd started chanting for Becky Lynch. She got over on her own. And then that whole man chant started. But what WWE does these days, and they did it to Becky Lynch, they did it to Rusev Day, they take organic things that start out, like I said, organically, that it's great. It's just wrestlers doing things on their own to make themselves go over. And when WWE sees something, they push that corporate machine and they make something natural turn into something that they force. This is why the crowd used to boo Roman Reigns so much. They were forcing Roman Reigns down our throats. It's not Roman Reigns' fault. Now Becky Lynch, this whole character she created, I thought was great at first, but now I think it's watered down because of WWE. And, the same goes for like other organic things that happen that start out really magically that WWE ruins. Now, I don't think Shayna Baszler should have won last night. I feel that, I know it sounds crazy, but everybody figured, it's going to be the Shayna Baszler or Becky Lynch. I would have had Bayley go over in that match just to have that edge and have that attitude that I proved both of you wrong. I told you I was better. Nobody gave me credit. Everybody had me and cast me in the shadows in the background. It was all about Becky Lynch and Shayna Baszler. But here I won the match. And I think if you're going to have the women's match as the closer last night, you should have shocked everybody and had Bayley go over. Not that I'm a huge fan of hers, but I thought that would have had a statement and that would have gave her some kind of push. Shayna Baszler already has that badass image. She's a two-time champion. She has the horsewomen who back her up. She looks tough. She looks the part. She is the part. She's a former UFC fighter. So she already has clout. Becky Lynch, the whole man gimmick, she's got clout. She was Becky 2 belts, and now she's had the Raw Championship since WrestleMania. So she already has that backing. She has that stamp. I feel that Bayley should have went over last night so she could have had that stamp and have that future push. Again, my opinion. So if anyone wants to agree or disagree, once this podcast is up, hit me up at Toddy D Wrestling on Twitter or check out my YouTube page, Toddy D, and, give me your thoughts and your opinions. I would greatly appreciate it. So now moving forward, we discussed the Survivor Series. What I want to get into now is basically overall the current state of the WWE. We discussed the titles earlier. Now I'm going to discuss them more in general, more in detail. So your current state of WWE, there's a total of 18 different champions, which is a total of 23 champions with 18 titles. So I have a list here. I'm just going to go down the list real quick and read them. And everybody probably knows exactly who everybody is, but let's just do a quick recap. You have Bray Wyatt as your SmackDown champ. You have Brock Lesnar as your Raw champ. Becky Lynch as the Women's Raw champion. Bayley as your SmackDown champion. Shinsuke Nakamura is your IC champ. AJ Styles is the US champ. Your Viking Raiders are the Raw Tag Team Champions. The New Day is the SmackDown Tag Team Champions. The Kabuki Warriors are the Women's Tag Team Champions, consisting of Asuka and Kairi Sane. R-Truth, from what I know at this point, is your current 24/7 champion, but that changes more than I change my shorts, so who knows who the 24/7 champion is right now. Adam Cole, boom, baby, is the NXT heavyweight champion. You have Shayna Baszler, the Women's NXT champion. Roderick Strong is your NXT North American champion. You have Lio Rush, your NXT Cruiserweight champion. The Undisputed Era are your NXT Tag Team champs, consisting of Bobby Fish and Kyle O'Reilly. You have Walter as your WWE UK champion. You have Kaylee Ray, your NXT UK Women's champ. Gallus, the NXT UK Tag champs of Mark Coffey and Wolfgang. Basically, the UK, I get it. They should be separate and all. That makes sense. But, we always discuss this whole brand split. No matter what WWE does, the brand split, the roster split, whatever you want to call it, it never works. I just feel there should be no splits. I'm not saying to have teams run amok, between Raw and SmackDown. But what I think they should do is just have, the way it is, set people, on the show. And then like every 6 months, do like a lottery pool and do some trades and keep it fresh so you don't have the same, obviously, stale rivalries over and over again. But I feel that, like, for instance, Bray Wyatt's your SmackDown champion and Brock Lesnar's your Raw champion. I don't think you need 2 titles. I think it's ridiculous. I think you should just go back to a classic WWE World Heavyweight title, maybe even an old school Eagle belt or something new. Doesn't matter what it's going to be. But I think the blue strap and the red strap, it looks like a kid's belt. And I think it's ridiculous. Let's make it adult. Let's make it 1 title and then have a tournament. So have Brock Lesnar go against the Fiend Bray Wyatt at a pay-per-view. And whoever wins, they're the WWE Heavyweight Champion, where they defend that title on Raw and SmackDown on both respective brands. And the same thing goes for Becky Lynch and Bayley. You don't need 2 champions. Have the 2 of them go at it and have 1 women's championship and have them defend on both respective brands. And like I said, every 6 months, have trades or whatever you want to do. So you keep it fresh, you keep it clean. But I think there's a redundancy of titles. There's too many titles, and there's too many to keep up with, and not everybody gets enough airtime, and not all these champions get to even defend the titles. I mean, you have Shinsuke Nakamura as your IC title holder and AJ Styles as a US title holder. Now, I'm not saying to combine those two titles because those are two different belts. Those titles are different. It's not as if they're both heavyweight titles or tag team titles. So I would make the IC title more prestigious like it used to be, have them defend on a regular basis, and make it more of a respectable title like it once was. And I would have never gone with that new title. I think it's ugly, and it just not only that it's ugly, it just reminds me of AEW. It doesn't look original. It lacks originality, and it looks like a really bad knockoff of AEW. And it's bad enough that all AEW does is talk trash about WWE. Now you're giving them fuel to the fire. Just my opinion. So, Shinsuke Nakamura should, start defending that IC title or give it to someone who will make it more believable and more prestigious. And, AJ Styles, he came in as this, big deal. And ever since he's had the U.S. title, I mean, he's going up against Humberto Carrillo tonight. And hopefully Humberto will go over. Maybe he could do something with that U.S. title because, not for nothing, AJ's been nothing but a flop. I liked him as the heavyweight champion. But as a U.S. champion, I'm not buying into it. I don't care for it. So then, same thing goes for your tag team champions. You have the Viking Raiders and you have the New Day. Take those tag straps, combine them into one major tag title, and have them defend on both brands. It's too many. As I mentioned earlier, it's just too many titles. Now, getting to R-Truth, he's your current 24/7 champion. Now, I'm all for making the 24/7 title entertaining. I remember back in the day when the WWF at the time, during the Attitude Era, they had the Hardcore title, and that was defended 24/7. And they had some really cool segments. Crash Holly, God rest his soul, when he was the Hardcore champion, he was defending 24/7. And I remember back in Brooklyn, there used to be a place called Funtime USA, and they filmed an episode in Funtime USA, and you see Crash Holly going down the big slide, and all the wrestlers are chasing him. They're going through all the mazes that the kids playing. That was pretty cool, and that was interesting. It was a lot of fun. But, the 24/7 title is not supposed to be taken seriously. R-Truth is like a 22 or 23-time champion as we speak. But you can make it fun, you can make it interesting and exciting without making it corny. So I think if WWE focused a little more on making that title more believable and more entertaining, I think the value of it and the longevity would be even better, moving forward in the future. Less hokey stuff and more entertaining, just fun stuff in general, but nothing too cheesy, as I guess what I'm trying to say. Then Adam Cole, he's your NXT champ. That's cool. There's only one NXT champion. There's only one NXT tag team champion and one NXT women's champion. And the same basically goes for the NXT UK. There's only one champion per person. That makes sense. But as far as the WWE Raw and SmackDown brands are concerned, you really need, I feel, in my opinion, to take the heavyweight title, the tag title, and the women's titles and combine them into one each and just have a tournament and see who wins it. And then, if Becky Lynch wins, and she's like the champion, she's the WWE women's champion, end of story. Not Raw, not SmackDown. One champion, defended on both shows. But, on a pay-per-view, whoever it is, whoever's the number one contender, you have number one contenders matches. I remember back in the days when I used to grade my magazines monthly, you had your top tag teams, you had your most hated, your most, most liked, top teams, top individuals, top everything. You had like a list in the back of the magazines, and it was great. So I think, lesser titles, more people involved, and the brand would be better overall. Again, that's my opinion. And, I'd like to hear from you guys, again, on Twitter at Toddy D Wrestling or Toddy D on YouTube. And, tell me what you have to say about that and what you think about it. So now another topic I'd like to discuss is Bray Wyatt. How can we improve the Bray Wyatt character? Now, here's the deal. I mentioned earlier that, I'm a big fan of Bray Wyatt. I think he's great. His interviews, even back when he was in the Wyatt family, were really good. I enjoyed everything. But I got to be honest with you. I'm not a fan of the red light, and most people aren't. But one thing I'm not a fan of, and I'm probably going to get a lot of backlash for this, and that's cool. I got thick skin. I can take it. I think the mask that he wears for the Fiend character actually ruins his character. And what I mean by that is when he does the Playhouse, when he's just Bray Wyatt and he's not the Fiend, he's wearing like the red sweater. He's basically I would say like a psychotic, deranged, schizophrenic version of Mr. Rogers with that red sweater that he wears. And he's all happy, and he's like, oh, don't you want to play? And then all of a sudden, toward the end, that's when he gets all serious. He's like, I just want you to let me in. That character alone, as the Fiend, to me, works without the mask. I feel you don't even need the mask. He can come out all happy, hey, everybody, and then eventually, with the schizophrenia and the psychopath that he is, you see the all happy 1 minute get all serious the next, and then that's when he starts flipping out against his opponents. I don't think he needs the mask. I think the mask, to me, my opinion, is kind of hokey. It's kind of 80s like gimmicks and like kind of cartoonish the way WWF used to be. You know, they got away with that. You know, they got away from that in the 90s with the Attitude Era. I know the mask is like, you know, really crazy and, you know, it's supposed to be scary or whatever you want to consider it. I'm not one for the mask. I like Bray Wyatt just as Bray Wyatt. He could be the Fiend without the mask. That's just my opinion. You know, he acts all happy and innocent women, as I mentioned. Then with that deranged split personality at the end of his messages saying, you know, let me in, it's good enough. You know, I don't like the mask. I don't like the striped pants that he wears. I feel it lowers the value of that deranged soul that he portrays in the Fiend character. And as I mentioned earlier, it's like kind of like cartoonish or like a wannabe horror type movie character. And I'm just not one for that. You know, I thought, as I said, I thought the age of cartoons and gimmicks were a thing of the past. Now with this mask, I guess we're going backwards. And I really wish we wouldn't. And, you know, lastly, you know, now Wyatt's on that exclusive SmackDown brand. And as I mentioned earlier, he made that title blue. You know, if you're going to have a light on during the matches, I think it would make more sense to have a blue light than a red light. But I don't think you should have any light. Just have the damn match. You know, have the character himself go over with the crowd. Do the gimmick. I mean, Undertaker for 30 years has been coming out with the lights down, the purple, the smog, all that mystique. But then once he picked his arms up and the lights went on, then we had a match. You know, there wasn't like any lighting or special effects throughout the entire match. I think it's overkill. And I feel there's no reason, you know, to have the blue light or red light or any kind of light. And as I mentioned earlier, having Bray, you know, no-sell moves that's applied, you know, that can only last for so long. And, you know, what's going to happen after that? I think it's going to be, you know, it's going to kill the character too quick because you can only no-sell moves for, you know, for so long. And again, that's just, you know, it's just my opinion. But, you know, last and not least, now this is the cool, huge idea that I had earlier today. I tweeted Triple H along with the whole WWE universe, along with Vince McMahon and a couple other people. And basically, I have a huge idea. And as I mentioned, this is the one time that WWE, as well as everybody else, is going to hear this. And I'm sure that people who have come up with this idea or thought of this idea in the past, I like to think that Triple H and Vince have talked about stuff like this or something similar. I can't be the only person who's thought of this, but maybe I have been. Who knows? But basically, my idea last night, since you had NXT go over in all these matches and have them have the 4 wins, and SmackDown had 2 and Raw had 1, I believe, why not just make NXT your official third brand? And, you know, what I mean by that is there's been a lot of talks that they're going to be moving Full Sail University and the NXT performers are going to be going nationwide and they're going to get out of that Full Sail University. Now, I think that's a great idea. So if they take their shows on the road like Raw and SmackDown, you know, they'll be able to do that. And then NXT, you know, they can become that official third, you know, major brand. And from there, Full Sail becomes an official training center, official training ground for all 3 brands. That, in my opinion, would make the most sense. Now, if that were to happen, you can add already established, you know, people to the NXT, back to the NXT roster. You can have stars on that official third new brand. You can have wrestlers like Samoa Joe, you know, Nakamura, Robert Roode, Cesaro, Dolph Ziggler, Dana Brooke, Apollo Crews. And there's so many other wrestlers that aren't being used properly on Raw and SmackDown. If you make NXT a third brand, then you can have all the entertainers, all the talent spread out on all 3 shows, and Full Sail can become the official training ground for all new developmental wrestlers. That's what NXT was supposed to be originally, developmental talent. Well, now if NXT is going to go over at Survivor Series the way they did last night, beat Raw and SmackDown, and make them look really bad on their own show, why not just make NXT their equal? Everybody's saying that they're better than Raw and SmackDown. You know what? The storytelling is better. The matches, the talent, everything has been better, you know, bar none. But now I feel since NXT's been that great, shouldn't they now become an official third brand and have them be equals with Raw and SmackDown? Have people, coming up in the ranks, all the indie talent, go to the Full Sail University, have them train there, own their craft, and then once they graduate Full Sail University, then they can be spread out and filtered, whether it's NXT, Raw, SmackDown, whoever it is, whatever show it is. That's when they can go on one of those three major brands, not two. NXT should be an equivalent. All three major brands. Triple H, if you're listening to Brooklyn's own Toddy D, I would do this if I were you, because since NXT is already beating Raw and SmackDown, you might as well make them their equals and just turn Full Sail University into a training center. I think that's the greatest idea. I think that's the best thing to do. You'll have three respective brands, and NXT will have their titles, and I think Raw and SmackDown should have sharing titles for some, and other titles could be split on the show. Like you could have the IC title on Raw, you can have the USA title on SmackDown, or vice versa. That's fine. But as far as like the world titles concerned, maybe the tag team titles, you can have a tag team title on Raw and SmackDown, but I feel the heavyweight titles and, the women's and the men's, heavyweight titles, it should be one title for both shows and have the champion defend on the two shows. And then sometimes have an interpromotional with NXT versus, a Raw or a SmackDown competitor. You'll have three major brands and have Full Sail University as your training ground. I think that would be like the greatest thing to do. That's just my opinion. I think it's a hell of an idea. I think it's something they should look into and try. But, Hunter, if you're listening to Toddy D, give me a call, man. We'll make this happen. We'll do it. We'll make it work. But, time's starting to wind down. I hope you guys enjoyed this podcast. As I mentioned, this is a work in progress. It's going to take a while. But I think, the more I do, the better it'll get, the more exciting it'll get. I want you guys to write in and let me know if you have any ideas or if you want me to discuss anything or if you'd like to hear my personal opinion on something. You can email me at toddyd6@yahoo.com. That's toddyd6@yahoo.com. You can check out this. It's going to be up on my Twitter account, which is at Toddy D Wrestling. It'll also be on YouTube. Toddy D is my YouTube page. You can type in TODDY with a space and a letter D. Sometimes you can put in the whole word, Toddy D, but I think it's better if you do Toddy space D. It's easier to find. And, one last note, I got a couple of minutes. I'd like to discuss really quick the emergence, if you will. It's been 6 years until we heard, that's right, CM Punk is back. Now, I'm not a big fan of his from the past because when I used to be an associate producer at NWA Cyberspace, CM Punk worked for us before he first got signed on to WWE. Really hard to deal with, but that was a long time ago. So, I like to think people have grown since then. I'm talking, like 13, 14 years ago. So, at the time he was kind of hard to deal with, but I'm personally happy to see CM Punk back. I get it that he's with FS1. He's a Fox commentator, and he's, paid to basically, dig into WWE and give his thoughts and everything of that nature, which I think is really cool. I think it's interesting how Seth Rollins is, trying to like nudge him into a match on Twitter, and AJ Styles did it also recently. And, it's really cool to be a wrestling fan between, the WWE, NXT, AEW. You have NWA Power, Ring of Honor, Impact, AAA, New Japan, and a bunch of other federations. It's really cool. But with CM Punk back now, I think it makes it even that much better. It's going to be really interesting. WWE's been in Chicago for this is the third night, and I think SmackDown will be the fourth night they'll be in Chicago. But it's been great. I was really hoping we'd hear the Cult of Personality, but he's not officially signed with WWE yet, folks. But hopefully that's just a small little speed bump, and eventually he'll sign on. Now, if CM Punk were to sign on, should his first match be against Seth Rollins? Should it be against AJ Styles? Somebody else, maybe Roman Reigns, someone from NXT? Steve Austin just did the Broken Skull session with Undertaker. Was his first interview he did. I aired on the network last night, which I thought was great. They're talking about CM Punk maybe being a guest on, Stone Cold's Broken Skull session in the future. But the bottom line is, I think WWE, personally, my opinion, they want CM Punk to be on that so they can have exclusive rights to him where he'll be with WWE and he won't be able to pull the jabs that he can, right now with FS1. I guess we're going to find out eventually in the future to see if CM Punk is back just as an analyst or maybe he might be wrestling. I mean, for now, if I were CM Punk and I was even considering making a return, whether it's WrestleMania or whenever, Royal Rumble, better start hitting the gym, bro, because, not to put you down or make fun of you, but you have lost some mass, and you want to look as believable as possible. I mean, when you were in your prime, you weren't even that big, but you were bigger than what you are now. So if you're going to go up against a guy the size of Roman Reigns, or when you fought The Rock that time, or even Undertaker, you need to get some mass. You need to fill back in a little bit. I mean, who am I to talk? I'm not, Jack LaLanne myself, but then again, I'm not a wrestler. Former wrestler, but that was years ago, trained by Johnny Rods. Another story, another time. It's interesting to see what's going to happen with CM Punk. I'm looking forward to Raw. It's going to be starting in approximately 33 minutes right now as we speak. It is now 7:27 on a Monday night. Hopefully Raw should be good. I heard through the grapevine that Alexa Bliss might be backstage, and she may address why she hasn't been wrestling, or she may actually even be wrestling tonight. I'm not really sure. Time will tell. By the way, sorry, spoiler alert, Alexa Bliss is backstage. If anybody got offended, oh well, get over it. And speaking of offending, my last note, this goes out to Corey Graves and Mauro Ranallo. Mental health is a serious thing. And don't get me wrong, I feel totally bad for Mauro Ranallo for what he's going through and having the issues that he has. And I'm not taking away him as an announcer. I think he is a great announcer. And perhaps maybe, Corey Graves shouldn't have discussed it on Twitter. Maybe it's unprofessional, whatever the case may be. But, at the end of the day, whether you like what somebody has to say or not, it is freedom of speech, just like what I'm doing right now. You may not like what I have to say, but you don't have to listen to it. The same goes with Corey Graves' tweets. But at the end of the day, Mauro Ranallo, he really does need to give other people a chance. When I was listening to War Games last night, 2 nights ago when I was listening to War Games, he was discussing something, and he looks over to Nigel McGuinness, and he says, right, Nigel, you know what I'm saying? You agree with what I'm saying, Nigel? And now Beth Phoenix is on the other side, and he doesn't even look over at her and ask her the same question, as if she's not even there. And, it was kind of stupid, maybe in poor taste for Graves to say, on one side you got a WWE Hall of Famer, and on the other side you have a former Ring of Honor World Champion, and you should be sharing the spotlight with them. Okay, maybe that should be discussed off air, but at the end of the day, he's right. But it does not give Mauro Ranallo an excuse and a reason to no-show Survivor Series. I thought that was unprofessional. I thought that was wrong. And at the end of the day, mentally ill or not, you have a responsibility in wrestling as an announcer. It's like me at my job. I don't have some good days. I have some bad days. I have some good days. It all depends. But I still go to my job. I still do what I have to do. And I don't use anything as an excuse. And I'm not, saying that his mental illness shouldn't be taken seriously. But with all due respects, if that's how it's going to be, perhaps being a commentator for WWE is not the right place for Mauro Ranallo to be. Maybe he should be doing something differently. At the end of the day, he's entitled to delete his Twitter account. That's all his. I mean, it's his account. He owns it. But he doesn't own WWE. He's an announcer for them. Therefore, he should have made his commitments and done his broadcast last night at Survivor Series. Michael Cole said that, he wasn't, there because he blew his voice out at War Games because he was all excited. That's a bunch of BS. You know it, and everybody else knows it. He wasn't there because he was ticked off what Corey Graves said. So, not to take, an old Stone Cold adage, he took his ball and he went home. But it's true, he did, and there's no excuse. It just seems like he's making excuses not to go to work and using his mentally ill challenge as the reason why, which I think is wrong. So with that being said, I hope you get better, Mauro Ranallo. I hope you feel better. Hopefully you'll be broadcasting on Wednesday night NXT on Wednesday night. From what I understand, you are. But at the same time, at the end of the day, give your colleagues a chance to speak. Because everybody says that Beth Phoenix isn't a good announcer. It's not that she's not a good announcer. She just never has an opportunity to speak. All she says is, oh my God, you see that? Oh my God, oh, wow, oh. She doesn't get a chance to say a word because you're too busy yapping. Too much of this Mamma Mia crap. I'm Italian, I get sick of hearing the Mamma Mia. That's just me. At the end of the day, give Nigel a chance, give Beth Phoenix a chance, and share the responsibility. So hopefully on Wednesday night things will change. Hopefully things will improve. And, people can say what they want about Corey Graves. He's no Bobby Heenan, but he's like a modern day heel version of Bobby Heenan. So I like Corey Graves. I don't think he's doing anything wrong. Maybe certain things should be, unsaid, but he didn't say anything that was really that bad to begin with. But that's all I got for now. My time is out. I'm going to get going. Once again, I'm Brooklyn's own Toddy D. Thank you for joining me on Toddy D's Pro Wrestling Podcast. Episode 4 is about to drop. Enjoy it. Drop me a line. And I'll see you next time at Toddy D's Pro Wrestling Podcast.